Emily pushed open the door of the little coffee shop on Elm Street. She loved this place, small, cozy, filled with the warm smell of coffee and the soft hum of chatter. It was her retreat, a place where she could sit by the window, sketching and letting her mind wander. As she ordered her usual black coffee, she noticed a man at a nearby table strumming a small, worn guitar. He had messy brown hair, bright eyes, and an easy smile that seemed to light up his whole face. He was playing a soft tune, one that made her think of sunny days and laughter. Lost in the music, Emily barely noticed when the barista handed her coffee over. "Nice tune," she found herself saying as she sat down. She rarely spoke to strangers, but something about this man felt open, friendly. The man looked up, and his smile grew even wider. "Thank you, I'm Daniel." His voice had a warmth to it, as if he'd been waiting his whole life to make her acquaintance. Emily introduced herself, feeling a bit shy but curious. "I'm Emily," she said softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "What brings you here, Emily?" he asked, leaning forward, genuinely interested. Emily hesitated. She wasn't used to talking about herself, especially with someone she'd just met. But something about Daniel's eyes felt comforting, safe. "I'm an illustrator," she said. "I come here to draw sometimes." Daniel's eyes lit up with interest. "An artist? That's amazing. I'm a musician," he replied, holding up his guitar as if to confirm his words. "I love playing here. People don't mind, and it's a nice place to get lost in the music." They talked for hours, moving from one topic to another, as naturally as waves rolling on the shore. Daniel told her about the cities he'd visited, the songs he'd written, and the people he'd met along the way. He was full of life and laughter, a bundle of energy that drew people in. Emily, in contrast, shared little, but Daniel seemed perfectly content to hear her speak about her art, her favorite books, and the little things she noticed in the world around her. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, as if someone truly understood her. But as they laughed and shared stories, a small voice inside her whispered caution. She knew what it felt like to trust someone, only to watch them walk away. The coffee shop grew quieter as people left, but Emily and Daniel stayed, caught in the warmth of their shared connection. She felt lighter, happier than she had in ages. Meeting Daniel felt like a ray of sunlight breaking through the clouds, illuminating a piece of her life she'd forgotten. And yet, as they said goodbye, Emily felt the familiar weight return. She didn't let herself think too much about him, pushing any feelings away like she always did. After all, she reminded herself, things like this never last. But even as she tried to ignore it, something about Daniel's laugh, his openness, stayed with her, and for the first time in years, she felt her heart stirring, despite her fears. Emily and Daniel grew closer with each passing day. They spent their evenings wandering through art galleries, laughing over their coffee shop favorites, or watching the stars from quiet rooftops. She felt as if a long-lost piece of herself had come back to life. Daniel's laugh, his stories, and his unwavering positivity painted her world with colors she had almost forgotten. One evening, Daniel invited Emily to one of his concerts. She stood among the small crowd, clapping and cheering as he played his guitar with infectious joy. She could still feel the buzz of excitement as he looked over, caught her eye, and smiled. It was a memory she wanted to hold on to forever. His face, illuminated by the warm stage lights, her heart beating fast. But a few days later, as she tried to recall the details of that night, something felt wrong. She remembered the concert, of course, But Daniel's smile in that moment seemed blurry, almost as if it were fading. She shrugged it off at first, thinking it was just a passing moment. But soon, other memories with Daniel began to blur. Their first walk under the autumn trees, the sound of his voice calling her name, the way his hand felt when he first held hers, all started slipping from her grasp. Emily grew anxious. Every time she tried to remember those special moments, she found herself facing an odd, frustrating emptiness, as if the memories were slipping away like sand through her fingers. She began writing things down, keeping a journal of every little detail she remembered about Daniel. She took pictures, trying to capture the moments so they wouldn't be lost. But even the photos didn't seem right. Daniel's face in them looked familiar, but the emotions tied to those memories seemed duller, weaker, as if they belonged to someone else. The more she tried to hold on to him, the more her memories seemed to slip. One day, she picked up her notebook to read about the first time Daniel had played his guitar for her in the park. But instead of filling her with warmth, the words on the page felt strange and distant, like reading about a character in a story rather than her own life. Confused and frightened, Emily searched for answers. She didn't want to lose Daniel or the beautiful moments they had shared. Yet, with every attempt to remember, a sense of emptiness grew inside her. It was as if some invisible force was stealing away the memories she held most dear, leaving only faint, faded impressions. And for the first time, Emily felt a growing panic in her heart, the fear that soon she might forget him completely. Emily's fading memories of Daniel had turned her worry into desperation. She could hardly focus on her art, constantly distracted by the sense that something important was slipping away. One day, she shared her fears with her friend Mia, who listened thoughtfully before leaning in close, a serious look in her eyes. "There's someone you should meet," Mia said softly. "He's known as the memory doctor. People say he can help you recover memories, even the ones that seem completely lost." Emily was skeptical. A doctor who could restore memories sounded too good to be true, but her fear of losing Daniel pushed her to try. She found herself in a quiet office the next day, filled with strange books and objects. The walls were a calm shade of blue, and the faint scent of lavender filled the air, making her feel both curious and a bit nervous. The memory doctor entered the room, a tall, thin man with silver hair and gentle eyes. He gestured for her to sit and listen intently as she explained her situation, her voice breaking as she described her fear of forgetting Daniel entirely. After a long pause, the doctor nodded thoughtfully. "I can help you," he said in a calm, reassuring tone. "But the process comes with a condition." Emily felt a mix of relief and hesitation. "What condition?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "To bring back your memories," the doctor explained. "You must let go of any fear, any worry, or regret tied to them. Memories don't just hold the happy parts. They hold everything. That means you may also need to face moments of sadness, doubt, and vulnerability." Emily felt a wave of discomfort. She wanted to remember Daniel, to keep those precious moments alive, but the idea of letting go of her protective walls terrified her. Memories, she realized, weren't always simple. She remembered feeling vulnerable with Daniel, scared that he would leave or that things wouldn't work out. She had hidden those feelings deeply, thinking they would keep her safe. Now, those same feelings were the key to recovering her memories. The doctor seemed to read her thoughts. "Memories are a part of who we are, Emily," he said gently. "Sometimes, holding on to fear and regret can cloud the joyful parts. Are you willing to face both sides?" Emily sat in silence, her mind racing. If she agreed, She might relive painful emotions she had tried to bury, but if she didn't, Daniel's face, his voice, the way he made her feel, all of it might be lost forever. It was a choice between holding on to the safety of her fears or embracing the risk of truly remembering. After what felt like hours, she took a deep breath and looked at the doctor. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "I'll do it," she whispered. "I'm ready to remember." The treatment began in the memory doctor's quiet office, where Emily sat in a comfortable chair, her eyes closed as she followed his gentle instructions. She felt herself drifting, sinking into a strange, peaceful state where her mind felt lighter, open to the memories hidden within. Suddenly, she was back at Daniel's concert. She could hear the cheering crowd, the soft strum of his guitar, and her own voice calling out his name. Daniel looked at her from the stage, his smile warm and bright, as if she were the only person in the room. Emily felt her heart flutter, just as it had that night, her love for him filling her once again. One memory led to another, and she found herself on a quiet walk with Daniel, leaves crunching beneath their feet. She could feel his hand gently holding hers, a touch she hadn't realized she missed so much. They had paused by a small lake where he'd told her a story from his childhood that made her laugh until her cheeks hurt. She remembered looking up at him, feeling his kindness, and for the first time, daring to imagine a future together. Yet, even then, she had held back, afraid of fully trusting in the happiness he brought her. As the memories continued to flow, she was there again in the moments of doubt and hesitation. Daniel trying to understand her silence, her closed-off heart. She saw the times when he patiently waited for her to open up, to let him in. She felt his quiet pain and longing as he stood by her, showing her love in all the small, unspoken ways she had often overlooked. In these memories, she saw the depth of his love, his silent hope that she would one day see herself as he saw her. A wave of warmth spread over her, and she felt tears in her eyes as she realized how much Daniel had given, how much she had been afraid to accept. She understood now that her own walls had been the barrier between them, her doubts and fears stopping her from fully embracing the happiness he offered. Regret washed over her, but so did gratitude for having known him, for experiencing a love that had tried so hard to stay. Finally, the memory slowed, each one leaving a lasting impression on her heart. Emily felt a deep, bittersweet longing, but also a peace she hadn't felt before. Even though these were only memories, she felt as though she had met Daniel all over again, discovering the true essence of what they had shared. As she opened her eyes, she realized she hadn't just remembered Daniel. She had come to understand him, to see herself more clearly, and to appreciate the rare love they'd shared. And though she couldn't go back, she knew these memories would forever remain part of her, clear and vibrant, bringing her both warmth and strength. Emily returned to her life with a quiet sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. Though the memories of Daniel had faded slightly, as if softened by time, they had left a lasting mark on her heart. She could still feel the warmth of his laugh, the comfort of his presence, and the joy he had brought into her world. These impressions stayed with her, not as perfect, detailed memories, but as something deeper, something that had become a part of who she was. With the memory doctor's guidance, Emily had learned to let go of the fear that had once held her back, the fear of loss and rejection that had kept her from fully embracing life. She realized that no memory, no matter how beautiful, would last forever. But that didn't make the experiences less valuable. They were precious because they had been real, and because they had taught her about love, vulnerability, and courage. One morning, she found herself back at the same coffee shop where she had first met Daniel. She took her usual seat by the window, sipping her coffee and watching people pass by. The scene around her felt familiar yet different. She felt a lightness, a quiet strength, as if she were seeing the world with new eyes. As she sat there, Emily noticed a couple at the table next to hers, laughing and sharing a quiet moment. For the first time, she didn't feel envy or regret. Instead, she felt a gentle happiness, a kind of peace she could hardly describe. She no longer felt afraid of the future or of being alone. She was ready to connect with others, to let them in without holding back, because she finally trusted herself. Emily knew that she might forget some details of her time with Daniel over the years, but she also knew that what truly mattered would stay with her. She closed her eyes, taking in the warmth of the coffee in her hands, and let herself smile. Her heart felt open, as though she were ready to welcome whatever came next. She had let go of her fears and doubts, and in doing so, she had found something even more valuable, a quiet, steady sense of love and acceptance that would remain with her no matter what memories time might fade. As she sat in that small coffee shop, Emily realized that she was finally truly ready for a new beginning.